Oh, hey there, podcast fans. Where you been hiding? I've been busy doing very little. Hello, and welcome to #SharpSign, the podcast for people who want to know more about music theory. And that's you, because you're listening to this podcast. On today's podcast, we're looking at the Element series, and this is episode 7, Harmony and Tonality.
Harmony
and Tonality.
Harmony
and Tonality.
Harmony
and Tonality.
Harmony
and Tonality. and Tonality. So, harmony and tonality go pretty well hand in hand, but what's the difference? Harmony refers to the individual study of chords and how notes work together, whereas tonality takes a larger overview of the piece of music. So, we could describe the tonality of Hey Jude by the Beatles as being major. However, there are some chords within which are minor. This doesn't change the overall tonality, but is something we should analyse in the harmony. Makes sense?
Hello, I'm on location at my piano. It's good to see you. Hey Jude. Don't make it bad. Don't make it bad. Take some hope. Hey Jude. Don't make it bad. Take a sad song. Make it better. That's good for my heart. It's also a major chorus. Love a load of pop songs now. They repeat a lot. Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You are made to. The minute you let her under your skin, to me. Oh, this is nice. Still the minor. Da, 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 da. So it's all major. It's a major key. It's an F major, I believe, but has minor chord in it.
Thank you very much to myself there on the piano. I'd like to welcome him aboard on location. He'll be back later on. So what is a chord, anyway? A chord is two or more notes sounding together. A triad is our most common chord. This consists of 3 notes. There are 4 main types of chords: major, minor, diminished, and augmented. All of these chords are based on thirds. And here is how we can easily work out any chord. First of all, what you need to be able to do is you need to understand how far how far away 2 notes are. So to work that out, start with the first note, and you count from that note upwards. So if we were measuring the distance between C and E, we'd be looking for you would go C, D, E. 1, 2, 3. So that would be a third. If we were going from D to A, we'd go D, E, F, G, A. That's a fifth. D, E, F, G, A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A fifth apart. The real key thing is to include the note you're starting on. What a lot of people do is kind of not do that. And then obviously that causes you to come up with the wrong answer. So first of all, we need to know what thirds are. Once we've established that, we can really work out any chord quite straightforwardly using a little pattern with semitones. Yes. So, there's major thirds and minor thirds in the world. And these are important because these are what basically form our chords. A major third is 5 semitones away from a note. A minor third is 4 semitones away from a note. And you basically, use this to work out all of the different chords that you need. So if you're looking for a major chord, it's going to be a major third with a minor third on top. So what does that look like? Well, if we were looking at C major, we would have C, and then we'd count up 5 semitones. So C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So the next note is E because it is 5 semitones away from C. Then we've got a minor third on top of that, and we go E, F, F sharp, G. So that takes us up to our other note, which is G. So the notes in a C major chord are C, E, and G. If you flip that round and do 4 semitones, then 5 semitones, that's a minor chord. And for that, we'd be looking for C, D flat, D, E flat. So the next note is E flat. So we've got C, then E flat, and then plus 5, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G. So C, E flat, and G would be the notes in a minor chord. I'm just going to put a little diagram up, and hopefully that'll make that much clearer for you. But essentially, you are counting up 5 semitones and then 4 semitones for major chords. You're counting up 4 semitones and then 5 semitones for minor chords. And then diminished chords are 2 minor thirds on top of each other. So it would be plus 4, plus 4. And an augmented chord is the other way around. So it's 2 major thirds on top of each other. So plus 5, plus 5. You don't really need to be able to do that at this level, but it is interesting to know about. But the main thing is being able to work out those major and minor chords. Okay then. So in a any kind of scale, we have names for each one of our notes or each one of our chords in that scale. And they are. The first one is the tonic. So number 1 is tonic. Number 2 is the supertonic. Number 3 is the mediant. Number 4 is the subdominant. Number 5 is the dominant. Number 6 is the submediant or the relative minor. Number 7 is the leading note, and then that takes us back to the tonic. So if we were in C major, C would be the note C and the chord C major would be the tonic. The note D and the chord D minor would be the supertonic. The note E and the chord E minor would be the mediant. The note F and the chord F major would be the subdominant. The note G and the chord G major would be the dominant. The note A and the chord A minor would be the submediant or the relative minor. That one has 2 names. And the note B and the chord B diminished would be the leading note. Okay, so that's the names. You don't really need to know all of those. It's handy to kind of have context. The most important ones are chord 1, chord 4, chord 5, and chord 6. So pretty much in anything, these are known as the tonic, which is chord 1, the subdominant, which is chord 4, the dominant, which is chord 5. And notice that 1, 4, and 5 are all major chords, and that's why chord 6, which is also, important, maybe not quite as important as 1, 4, and 5, but it's fairly important, is the relative minor or submediant. That's why it's called that, because the other 4 are major, and that one's the relative minor. This is in a major key, and a minor key is slightly different. At GCC, we can expect to see these chords, and a few extras from the key in music. If the music modulates or changes key, then we can expect it to head to one of these keys. So if it changed key, I would expect the question to say, does the music modulate to and then it will give you the options: tonic, subdominant, dominant, or relative minor. And I would expect that Tonic is definitely the most important. You need to understand that the home key is really important. Chord 1, note 1 is just really important all of the time. You need to know that. And you need to also know that the dominant is probably the second most important. So we have dominant chord. So if we were in D major, the tonic would be D major. The dominant would be A major because it's 5 notes away. If we were in F major, the tonic would be F major. The dominant would be C major. The subdominant would be B flat major because B flat is in the key signature. And the minor, the relative minor, would be D minor. So you can work that out literally just by counting. So if we continue with F, we go F, 1, G, 2, A, B flat, number 4, there we go, is important, C, 5, and D, 6. And that's basically what you need to know about those guys. But yeah, pretty important. Another kind of words, really. It's learning the words more than anything else. Just learning that tonic means 1 or home, dominant means 5, and like a lot of classical music really just oscillates between 5 and 1, 5 and 1, 5 and 1. And it's just kind of how harmony is. We also have something called added chords. So we'll talk about those now. So added chords or extended chords or chord extensions or any of those kind of things, they all mean the same idea. Basically, in a chord, you have a triad, don't you? So if we take C major, C, E, G, if we want to add any other notes to that, it becomes an added chord or an extension. A normal one would be a 7th. So you just carry on your pattern of essentially missing out a note and adding a note. So C, miss out D, E, miss out F, G, miss out A, add B. So you might add B or you might add B flat, depending on what kind of chord you want to aim for. Then you can keep going. If you want to make it a 9th, you add D. An 11th, you would add F. And you can just keep going and going and going. And it makes really quite, nice sounding chords. Jazz music uses added chords all of the time. So does show music. So if you're listening to a piece of music in those kind of genres, it would be a reasonable assumption to think that there's going to be some sort of extended or added chords within there. You can also add in, like seconds, sixths. And, there's some debate really, isn't there? Because if I add a 9th, so C, E, G, D, if I add that D note, which sounds really nice, but what if I move that like an octave down? Is it a 9th or is it a 2nd? And what's really the difference? And anyone that's a guitar player, you'll be quite familiar with playing added chords. Normally because, to be honest, when you're learning chords, some of the added chords are actually easier to learn than the actual normal chord. So yeah, it's just adding in extra notes basically and extensions. It gives the harmony a little bit of a different feel. So there you go. That is basically those. Just a quick note on 2 really important words: diatonic and chromatic. So diatonic harmony is notes used from inside the key, and diatonic harmony will be one of our hashtag best guesses later on, because if you're composing a piece of music, if you're making up some sort of tune, or if you're listening to any music or whatever, normally you're going to use notes from inside a key. It's just a normal thing to do. Normally, like the song listed in our Blinding Lights, I've never analysed it harmonically, but I would be surprised if there's any chords from outside of the key in this piece of music. It's normally that it's diatonic. It sounds very diatonic to me. Chromatic harmony will be notes from outside of the key. So if you're hearing something that's obviously kind of switching keys or changing, normally in, again, jazz or show music, and kind of modern classical music, so kind of from Romantic onwards, you might start to get more chromatic harmony, but certainly like the Baroque period and the classical period, you never got it. And in pop music, you don't get it very often. Okay, some artists like Queen, people like that will use it, but it's not that prevalent really. The next thing I want to talk about is cadences. moments in music that are like commas, and there are moments which are like full stops. This musical punctuation is defined by cadences. There are 4 types of cadence. There are some cadences which sound finished. These cadences are the perfect cadence and the plagal cadence. And the reason they sound finished is because they return to the tonic. So whatever key you're in, they finish on that tonic chord and it sounds finished. That's a perfect cadence and a plagal cadence. There are some cadences which sound unfinished. And they don't finish on the tonic, basically. And that's why. So the cadences are perfect cadence, which is chords 5 to chord 1, always. So if you're in C major, it's chord G major to C major, 5 to 1. If you're in D major, it's A major to D major. Whatever key, it doesn't matter, that's what it is. Plagal cadence, which is also known as the Amen cadence, sounds a little bit churchy, and that's chord 4 to chord 1. So if you're in C major, it'd be chord F major to chord C major. If you're in G major, it would be chord C major to G major. And the most important thing is that they return to the tonic and that you can hear that. The most common, absolute by a mile, is the perfect cadence. It is massively used compared to the others. The other 2 are the interrupted cadence, which goes to a minor chord. So it's normally 6, but it could be 2. And basically, that one's really easy to identify because you hear that minor chord suddenly in a major key, and you think, oh, that's different, completely different, and that should give you a good clue. If you're in a minor key, it'll be the other way around. And then the last one is the imperfect cadence, which finishes on chord 5. So instead of returning home to that root chord, that tonic chord, it stays on 5 and it kind of hangs in the air, and it sounds unfinished. So if your hashtag best guess 100% will be a perfect cadence if you've got no idea. But if you can hear that it sounds finished, a perfect cadence is a good guess. If you can hear that it sounds unfinished, an imperfect cadence is a good guess. But you can tell the difference between these with a little bit of practice. So I'm going to use Twinkle Twinkle Little Star as an example. I'm going to put different cadences in. So over to you, my friend.
Okay, so Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's got quite a lot of cadence points in it. Why? It's quite a lot of cadence points in it. So, and it's a tune we all know, so it's easy to use. We're in C major, ladies and gents. Our tonic, therefore, is C. Turn that up a little bit. C major. Our subdominant is therefore F. It's the 4th, so C, D, E, F, C, F. Our dominant is G, C, D, E, F, G, so that's the, and our relative minor is A minor. Okay, and it doesn't matter what tune we play, if we're in C major, that is absolutely always the case for those chords. I keep looking at not the camera, so sorry. So let's just listen to those cadences in isolation first. So here is a perfect cadence. We're in C. And here is chord 5. To chord 1. Perfect cadence. Let's hear it again. Sounds finished, sounds like the music has ended. And it's happy, it's resolved. An Amen cadence, or chord 4-2-1, sounds like this. So you can kind of hear that, like, Amen. That's why it's called that, Amen cadence. So, yeah. Our other cadences, our unfinished cadences are the imperfect ones. So if we literally go like, and we want to go back to 1, but we're not, we're kind of sick in here, so it's imperfect, it's still in chord 5, because it wants to go out there, which would be a perfect cadence. But if we stay there and finish the piece, good night, thank you very much, or finish the section, or that moment, then that is imperfect. if we go to a minor chord suddenly, that's interrupted. I mean, I think that one's really easy to identify because of the change in tonality. So, there you go. Let's look at Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the tune in the highest part of the hand. So, I'm going to harmonise it underneath. I'm going to try and play the bass line lower, so you can hear it a little bit. I don't know how well it comes across on this. We'll find out. So here we go. Here's the tune. It's going to be slow. So chord 1 to start with. Chord 1. Chord 4. So I play equal cadence straight away. Yeah, listen to that. Nice. And then perfect cadence, very clear. Right? Sorry. Perfect cadence. And we're back to imperfect cadence. It pauses. It wants to carry on. Let it carry on, please. That's another imperfect cadence there. I mean, if we change that to a minor chord now, you'll hear the difference. So hopefully you'll hear an interrupted one quite easily. Interrupted. Perfect. Cadences.
In an exam, you could be asked for a harmonic device or a compositional device relating to harmony. That's quite a common question. And it's important that we go through a few of these. So, these could be diatonic or chromatic harmony, which we've already talked about. So just to recap, diatonic literally means from the key or in the key. Chromatic harmony means from outside of the key. So it does sound different. We've got things like pedals and drones, which is where we have a sustained or repeated note over and over again in the bass normally. And it would just be consistently the same note all the time, kind of keeping the harmony static. Extensions, which we've talked about. Something called ground bass, which is mainly used in Baroque. It's where we have like a repeated bass line over and over again throughout a piece of music, and the music changes over the top of it. So you normally find that in Baroque music. And it could be things like suspensions, which is where we hold over a note from a previous chord to change the harmony. It sounds like it kind of clashes a little bit, and then it resolves as well. So that's the kind of things that you might get asked about. But yeah, I think we've pretty much covered harmony. So let's briefly talk about tonality. So the character of a piece of music is related to its key or tonality. So tonal music would be either in a major key or a minor key. So if you get asked to say what is the tonality of the piece, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be major or it's going to be minor. But there is also atonal music, which is not in a key. So atonal music would just be outside of a key. It would sound really nasty. Potentially lots of clashing notes. I mean, some people really like it. Not my cup of tea, personally. Lots of clashing notes. Lots of no sense of harmony. No sense of what the key would be. No sense of major or minor. Just kind of clash, clash, clash. And then there's also something called modal music. So, modal music is a little bit different. It's a different tonal system. So, let's have a little look at that now.
So then, modes then. Like modes. Where do we start with this? Let's not overcomplicate it. Basically, we have major and we have minor as tonal things. So here's major. Lovely. Here's minor. And there's minor. Now, modal is, imagine you've got your piano, your keyboard, whatever, and you go from a note to another note of the same one. So if you go from C to C, you get a major key. If you go from A to A, you get a minor key. If you went from D to D, you would get a mode. Okay, if you went from B to B, you would get a different mode. Just sounds different, doesn't it? It sounds unusual potentially for us because we don't really use them that much. And yeah, that's basically modes. So in a folk music, especially, you might get a modes and they'd be kind of with a bit of static harmony underneath. So you might have a drone. So if I do Dorian mode, something like that. I mean, that wasn't amazing, but you get the idea. And it kind of gives that kind of different kind of sound. So if you hear something like that, you know it's in a mode. You don't need to know much about the modes. You just need to know that they're out there and they exist. And the way you identify them, I guess, is just by really, really getting to grips with what a major key and what a minor key sound like. Because if you know that inside and out, and then you hear something, it doesn't quite sound major or minor. You know. For me, I know that it should go like, if it was major, or if it was minor, rather than. So I know something's a bit different there. So get to grips with that and you can hear it. Don't be deceived though, because they are using pop songs. So if we look at Get Lucky by Daft Punk, that's definitely in a mode. I think the main thing really for me would be just to get to grips with them a little bit, play them, and with all of this harmony stuff, just do it. Get out there and doing it, you know, making these kind of like, learning these different things, learning about the little intervals that we talked about before, learning about the cadences that we looked at, learning about all of the different things would be the absolute key, and practicing them and trying them, and whatever your instrument is, you know, or your voice, just getting to grips a little bit. There's programs and things like that out there. There's software and whatever else, and yeah, just practicing and doing is probably the key thing.
My goodness me, he is handsome. Ooh! Okay, it's time for Hashtag Best Guess. Okay, so hashtag best guess for harmony and tonality. Oh, that is a big question. Big, massive, large. I think that if you get asked generally about harmony, diatonic is a good word to remember because most harmony, especially in the stuff that we do at GCSE level, is normally in the key. So that's really, really important to remember. I think getting to grips with the changes of harmony over time and kind of what changed in the different periods, like Baroque, classical, romantic, more modern, jazz, all musicals, pop, whatever, is really, really important as well. I think that will help you massively. If you get asked about cadences, perfect cadences, definitely the number one for that for a guess. But again, you have to listen to it and see what you think it might be. And if you get asked for like a harmonic device, well, people really like pedals, so pedals are often in there. But yeah, basically, it could be anything. Extended chords. It really depends on what the kind of music is. So, Hashtag Best Guess. Well, that is the end of the podcast with new visuals. How exciting. I hope you found that helpful. I mean, I've not covered absolutely everything there is to know about harmony and tonality. And like I said in one of the videos, I mean, the absolute best thing to do is to kind of get to grips with it yourself. I mean, if you want to get good at harmony, you're going to have to just start doing it, listening to it, trying it, working out chords, working out things, listening for cadences, listening for intervals, and all that kind of thing. And yeah, you know, it can be really rewarding if you manage to do that. But thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I hope it was helpful. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.